Okay, sorry. I just failed on messing up some months ago. So I got another Zalero's book to read. I think I have fade off of my technology whenever you fakes on the cokes. So, can't you believe it's been 2 years? Little Miss Scatterbrain died in a car crash. So, anyways, I'm going to pay tribute to her as I read this book called Circus Robbery. It's a very funny story. Bow City was buzzing with excitement. The circus extravaganza was to be arriving in town, boasting a brand new magic act never before seen. It had been the talk of the town for the past few weeks, and it had finally arrived. Tents were being set up in the parklands adjacent to Bow City Museum. Trailers were being driven in behind large trucks, while the local children delightfully gathered around to watch. Professor Bard smiled as he watched the excitement from his office window. He loved seeing the children so happy that it was such a rarity to have the circus come to town. The professor looked down at his watch. Where are they? He muttered to himself as he headed back to his desk. He expected the Zaleros would arrive any minute. At that moment, the door flew open, and the Zaleros barged into the office. The circus has arrived, cried Lottie. They're finally here. Professor Bard was almost bowled over by the stampede as he approached to greet them. Front row, squealed Isha. That's awesome. Professor Bard reached down and gave Zorro a pat. I've even reserved a spot for you, Zorro, he said. Zorro responded with a loud bark. Wait until you hear the news, the professor said as he turned his attention back to the Zaleros. What news? Replied Ace and Rue in unison. The professor winked cheekily at the children. He walked to the big leather armchair in the corner of his office and stalled, just a bit of tease. He tried to keep the corners of his mouth from curling upwards as he watched the Zaleros bursting with anticipation. Well, Professor Bard started as he fell backwards into his chair. I have spoken with the circus ringmaster Pierre, and he has agreed to take us on a backstage tour before the show starts tonight. You'll get to meet some of the performers and watch them practicing their acts. The Zaleros could barely contain their excitement. How did you manage that, Professor Bard? Asked Ace. Oh, don't you worry about that, the professor responded with a grin. Suffice it to say that I might be making a brief appearance on stage tonight. The Zaleros looked puzzled. All right, he finally admitted. I've agreed to volunteer to participate in the vanishing act. The children burst into fits of giggles. Wow, said Rue. This is definitely going to be a performance not to miss. Yes, I'm sure, said Professor Bard somewhat dubiously. We'll get over there soon. The gates will open to the rest of the public in about 2 hours. The Zaleros, accompanied by Professor Bard, was greeted at the circus entrance by the ringmaster Pierre. He was a barrel of a man with a shining red face, dancing eyes, and a contagious smile that spread across his entire face. Bonjour! He welcomed them cheerfully. Pierre escorted the Zaleros to the back of the tent and over to the trailer where the clowns were painting their faces and preparing for their bright, colorful costumes. They all look so funny, Lottie giggled. Zorro trotted over and nuzzled to be one of the clowns, getting thick, wet makeup all over his fur. I think he wants to be the part of the act, Ace laughed. Zorro wagged his tail. He loved being the center of attention. Standing outside the next trailer was a tall man in a large black coat and mask. His presence was almost intimidating. The Zaleros approached him curiously. What do you do, sir? Amali asked timidly. With a swish of his coat, the magician produced a huge bunch of flowers out of nowhere and gracefully presented them to her. Another swish and he had disappeared. Zorro barked with excitement at all these new and interesting smells to be discovered. After being briefed by the magician as to what he must do during the act, Professor Bard called in the Zaleros. They had been milling around the other performers and were listening in awe as the intriguing circus tales. Let's go, children. We'll have an hour before the show, which is perfect for a quick snack at the Bubble-Rama Bubblegum restaurant. Giggling gumballs, that's fantastic, shouted Lottie. The Bubble-Rama was Lottie's favorite place in the whole world, and she was always eager to go there with her friends. After enjoying a special treat of pancakes and with the side of rainbow bubblegum, the Zoleros and Professor Bard arrived back at the circus, and were shocked to see Countess Lucille standing at the entrance, dressed in her finest evening gown. "Uh-oh, what do you think the Countess is doing here?" questioned Ace. "It appears she's greeting the patrons and collecting the tickets." "How odd," the professor replied, a little confused. "Since when has she ever helped anyone except herself?" asked Rue. "I think we had better watch her extra carefully in case this is one of her nasty plans," added Molly. They saw the ringmaster Pierre coming towards them with an anxious look on his usually jovial face. "There's been a change of plans," Pierre blurted to Professor Bard. "You won't be required for the magic act anymore." He abruptly turned and left. "Is everything okay?" replied the professor, but Pierre had already gone. When the Zoleros arrived at front of the queue, they were greeted by the Countess. "Oh, hello, Zoleros. How lovely to see you. And I am so glad you are here to see what is bound to be the most incredible show ever." Now the Zoleros really were worried. The cheerful chatter from the audience died down as the lights dimmed. The occasional cough and crackling of snack wrappers broke the silence as the audience silently stared at the stage in anticipation of what was about to come. From under the spotlight appeared the ringmaster. Pierre delivered his introduction in a usually monotone voice and scurried off the stage. "Something's definitely not right," Professor Bard whispered to Ace. "I was getting a bad feeling too," Ace replied. "I'm going to slip out with Zorro to check things out. Rue and Molly, come with me." Ace quickly left his seat and the others followed. "Report back quickly if you find anything out of the ordinary, wouldn't you?" confirmed the professor. "Let me know if you need my help," he continued. Ace nodded grimly. Backstage, peering from behind a large crate, the children saw that the clowns had now been talking with earlier that they sound asleep. "Something's wrong," Molly observed. "They were also full of energy this afternoon when we were here. There's no way that we folded their sleeps by themselves. The Countess must be up to something." "Let's go and find Pierre the ringmaster and ask what's going on," said Rue. "Wait," Ace grabbed Rue by the arm. "We're not even meant to be here. Let's look around first and see if we can find anything else," he added. "Can you smell something funny?" Molly inquired. Zorro followed that scent," Ace ordered. Zorro, always happy to help out on a mission, wagged his tail and took off. The children followed behind cautiously and stayed in the shadows so not to be seen. They were led around the back of the trapeze artist trailer by Zorro. Peering through the small window of the trailer where the children saw the trapeze artist was almost so asleep. There was an overwhelming stench of chemicals in the air. At that moment, Zorro, who had been nosing around inside the trailer, appeared and dropped a small, empty vial at Ace's feet. He seemed very pleased with himself. "What have you found, Zorro?" Ace asked. Molly picked it up and read the label. "Warning, this is a very strong sleeping potion," he stated. "It can be extremely dangerous and should only be administered under close medical supervision." "Well, that explains why all performers are out cold. But why would the Countess want to do such a thing?" asked Rue. "The circus will be ruined." "We can't be certain yet that it was the Countess, but it does look quite likely," stated Molly. "We must act quickly and try to work out the way to counter the effects of the sleeping potion. The reputation of the circus is at stake," said Ace. "There will be a very angry crowd, to say the least, if the show cannot go on," added Rue. "I think whenever the sleeping potion originally came from, there will be a vial of antidote, which counteracts the effects. We must find it to get the performers back to consciousness so the show can go on," Molly said. "I think I might have just found an important clue," said Rue as he spotted a peacock feather on the ground. He bent down and picked it up. "Does anyone recognize this?" "Yes, just as we expected. We suspected. Countess Lucille is behind this," replied Ace. "We must get back to Professor Bard and the others to plan what needs to be done, Ace directed. They quickly made their way back into the audience and took their seats. The act is becoming a little repetitive, Isha complained. All we've seen is the magician. It seems the Countess has made all the other performers fall asleep, and it's like this is why they're not coming to replace the magician, Rue explained. What do you mean? Asked Oscar. Ace gave Professor Bard and the other Zaleras a quick rundown of what they discovered. Countess Lucille is sure to be behind this, said the professor. What made me even more worried and why she would be doing this? Does she even have a nastier plan? I need to find the ringmaster and assertion when he knows. Don't do anything until I get back. The mysterious voice of the magician came over the loudspeaker. And now, for the amazing disappearing act, we have a special volunteer from the audience. I wonder who that could be, Isha asked as the magician paced the stage. The words had barely escaped her lips when the hand from the audience, not far from where the Zaleras were seated, was raised, followed by a lean, tall silhouette of a figure, with large plume spouting from a hat. Countess Lucille made her way onto the stage. It seems a little charitable for the likes of her, Lottie suggested, suppressing her giggle. Trust me, replied Rue. I'm sure this is quite of her plan. In no time at all, the professor returned, quite out of breath. Just as I suspected, Countess Lucille has cleaned out the entire audience of their valuables. She has drugged the performers and threatened to ruin the circus if they alert anyone's attention to what is going on. We must get her quickly. It's about a second too late for that, Isha advised, her eyes glued to the stage. She just disappeared. At that moment, a large cackle resounded throughout the tent, and then silence. Zora will be able to track her down before she gets too far, Ace announced confidently over the audience's applause. Wait, said the professor. When they initially asked me to partake in their act, I was told I would be hidden beneath the trapdoor under the stage until I was cued to reappear. That's where she will be, he trailed off, paused, then continued. Unless, of course, she has no intentions of being brought back. It seems she has what she came for. Ace, you take Zora and Rue to find out where the Countess is gone, directed Professor Bard. Right away, Ace answered. Once again, Rue, Ace, and Zora sneaked out of the audience and around behind the tent. We need to find a way to get under that stage, said Ace. Rue, do you still have that feather? Of course, Rue replied as he pulled the feather from inside of his jacket. Ace took it and pointed in front of Zora's nose. Zora, track, he ordered. Zora immediately started sniffing around until he came across what appeared to be the latch of the trapdoor and near a pile of old wooden boxes. Rue brushed away the dirt with his feet. This must lead somewhere, Rue suggested confidently. They lifted the lid and exposed a number of stairs leading in the dark passageway. Zora leapt in first, closely followed by the others. With only the dim light from Ace's pen light, they made their way to the end of the tunnel to find nothing but a small black and white checkered box and a gold chain in the dirt. She's definitely been there. She's definitely been here, said Rue after studying the distinct high-heeled shoe prints of the dirt. I'd say she's dropped that gold chain in her hasty departure. This box looks like it could be some sort of teleporting device, said Ace, picking up the device in the chain. We need Zira's expertise for this one. I'm sure she'll be able to figure out exactly what it is. I know she was working late at the museum, said Rue. If we hurry, we may be able to catch her before she leaves. Ace put the items in his pocket carefully. The three hastily made their way out the tunnel and back to Professor Bard and the other Zaleras who had already left the tent and were waiting for them at the exit. Lottie, take this to Zena and have her examine it, Professor Bard directed, handing the checkered cube to Lottie. It may tell us where the Countess has gone. Lottie took off on her rollerblades at supersonic speed and within minutes had returned with a small magnetized ship. Zena removed this from the teleporting device and is instructed to be attached to one of our medallions, explained Lottie. It will take us to the palace which it was thus programmed to teleport to. Zena believes it was Countess Lucille's palace. Zena is a genius, exclaimed Oscar. The Zaleras knew what had to be done. They put their hands together and began to chant in unison. 4 points of the earth, moon, and sun. unite together and become as one. And it's off to Lucille's palace we go! The Zolero stood out in front of a mansion with diamonds encrusted in the walls and gold plating at the front doors and the window trim. It's beautiful, Lottie cried, almost blinded by the sparkle. She's even obsessed with jewels, Isha responded. Even the security fence is made out of diamond wire. Careful, this fence is electrified, Oscar warned. We need to find a way to get over the fence without touching it, said Rue. Does anyone have any ideas? Zoro barked and started jumping around. It seems he's pretty sure he can clear it if he's at super size, said Ace. Zoro knew exactly what he had to do. As soon as all the children had mounted his back, he rapidly grew large enough and then sprinted at top speed towards the fence, launching into his highest jump ever. The Zoleros cried, "Yippee!" as they sailed over the fence and into the grounds of Countess Lucille's palace. Way to go, Zoro! Ace cheered. Zoro soaked up the moment happily as he received pats and praise from everyone. When we were on top of Zoro, I noticed that there was a way to in the palace in the front of the tower over there, said Isha observantly. The Zoleros made their way to the base of the tower, where Oscar lassoed the flagpole sitting at the top of the tower. One by one, the team scaled up the palace tower using Oscar's rope. Zoro had shrunk to the size of a mouse and traveled in Ace's pocket, while Amali simply did a triple somersault toward Flip to get to the tower all by herself. The inside of the palace was even more spectacular than the outside. There were exquisite works of art hanging from the walls, and there were gold-leaf statues lining the marble corridors. We must be very quiet, Isha warned. The Zoleros found their way into what appeared to be a drawing room. We will have to split up as time is crucial, directed Ace. Amali, Rue, Zoro, and I will look for the antidote to wake the performers, and the rest of you go in search of Countess Lucille. But be careful not to let her know we're here. The Zoleros nodded in agreement. We'll meet back here shortly, Ace added. Ace, Amali, Rue, and Zoro made their way down the staircase into a laboratory-style room. There were numerous beakers full of strange-smelling fluids. Something was burning over a Bunsen burner, and there were rows of small fires in the cabinets on the walls. Bunsen and beaker have been spotted. How are we going to know which is the right one? Asked Amali, looking disheartened. Zoro sniffed vigorously across the room, around the room, and stumped in a cabinet with only a few vials remaining. He's found something, noticed Ace. He has recognized the smell of the chemicals from the circus. Well done, Zoro. Amali studied each of the labels of the vials carefully. Yes, he's right. This is the sleeping potion. But the antidote is not here. We need to find an aqua-colored liquid. Like this. Rue held up a small vial he found in the bottom drawer of the adjacent cabinet. Amali took it and read the label. This is it, she cried with relief. Are there any more? No, that's it, replied Rue. Okay, let's go and find the others, said Amali. In the meantime, Oscar, Lottie, and Isha had found their way into a large library and could overhear Countess Lucille muttering to herself in the next room. They quietly tiptoed to the partially ajar drawer and peered in. Although the lights were dim, Isha could see the Countess cradling handfuls of jewels and money close to her chest, with a look of glee in her beady eyes. They must be the belongings she stole from the audience at the circus, Isha stated. We should get back to the other Zoleros and tell them together we can figure out how to return the stolen property. They quietly left the room and made their way back to the drawing room, where Ace, Amali, Rue, and Zoro were waiting. We found the antidote. Did you see the Countess? Asked Ace. We did, replied Oscar. She was gloating over all the stolen belongings, added Isha. We need to devise a plan to get her back from the circus and return the stolen items for their rightful owners, said Amali. I think the only way she would go back to the circus is if she was to gain something of value, Isha suggested. That's it, exclaimed Rue. We'll let her overhear us talking about an extremely valuable diamond tiara left to the circus by a wealthy anonymous benefactor. That will surely be temptation enough to return. Brilliant idea, Rue, praised Lottie. The Zoleros hurried back to the library to carry out their plan. Fingers crossed that Countess Lucille would fall straight into the trap. Lottie and Molly discussed loudly between themselves how much the tiara would be worth. Countess Lucille was seething in rage when she realized there were children in her house. She had no time for the meddling children that only spoiled her plans. The Countess managed to suppress her anger when she heard about the tiara. After all, little pests had done her a favor. As far as she was concerned, the diamond tiara was as good as hers. The Zolaris plan had been a success. They knew they had to get back to the circus and Professor Bard before Countess Lucille arrived. After teleporting themselves back to the circus, the Zolaris informed Professor Bard and Ringmaster Pierre what they discovered. Amalie, take the antidote backstage and administer to the office quickly. To the performers quickly, Professor Bard instructed. The rest of you go with Pierre and help us set up the trap for when Countess Lucille arrives. Professor Bard went back to the tent and tried to calm the restless crowd. Some of the audience members had become aware that their belongings were missing. Was it all part of the show, or had they been robbed? Professor Bard thought it was all best at this stage to have them think this was part of the act. After all, he had enough faith in the Zolaris to know that everything would work out. The Zolaris went to work for setting a trap for Countess Lucille. Behind the circus tent, they rigged up the safety tent used for the trapeze act. Oscar used his rope to lasso one of the support beams, which they attached to the safety net. The plan was to trap Countess Lucille in the net, tie her up, and put her in the circus cannon. Molly had been carefully administering small doses of the antidote to the performers. She had to be very careful to make sure there were enough for everyone. The clowns were slowly gaining consciousness, but they were way too woozy to be able to perform. Molly knew she would have to monitor their recovery closely. Zori suddenly started barking relentlessly. Can you smell that too, Zoro? Ace queried. They had both smelled the all too familiar scent of Countess Lucille's overwhelming perfume. Quick, Lottie and Lou, get into position, whispered Ace. Lottie and Lou lined up ready to be comforted at any moment by the Countess, and they started chatting again about tiara. It's so good that Countess Lucille never brought the diamond tiara, said Lottie. Yes, that's more valuable than anything combined that she stole, Countess Lucille. Added Rue. Aha, you little rascals thought you had tricked me, exclaimed Countess Lucille as she entered the corridor, carrying a stun gun. You really are foolish to think that you could beat me, the great Countess Lucille. Now tell me where the tiara is. What tiara? There is no tiara, said Lottie in a confused manner. Don't try those tricks on me. Tell me this instant where the tiara is, or I'll use this stun gun to ensure that you'll never blow another bubble again, replied the Countess as she raised her stun gun, ready to fire at Lottie. Okay, we'll tell you, said Rue. The tiara is buried in a treasure box just outside the back of the circus tent, underneath the hot dog cart. The Countess raced outside and over to the hot dog stand. Zora let out one sharp bark to alert the other Zolaris that Countess Lucille was on her way. Molly, Oscar, and Isha waited outside, ready to drop the net at the perfect moment. Now, squealed Amalie as Countess Lucille reached the hot dog stand. Oscar pulled in the rope, and the net came crashing down over her. Lick her, Zora, ordered Ace. Zora jumped on top of the Countess and proceeded to lick her with extra drool, while Rue and Ace tied her up. Disgusting! Get this mutt away from me! Screamed Countess Lucille. It's great that you volunteered to be part of a circus segment that was just reaching the most exciting part of the show, the human cannonball, said Ace. And with that, Rue and Oscar loaded the Countess into the circus cannon. No, you must let me go, pleaded Countess Lucille. The ringmaster stepped out onto the stage under the spotlight to address the audience. Please give a warm round of applause to Countess Lucille, who has generously volunteered to participate in the final act of the evening. The crowd applauded half-heartedly. Give us back the valuables you stole, Ace ordered. Not on your life, Countess Lucille replied. It's mine. It's all mine. Lottie fired the cannon, and Countess Lucille flew across the audience with a bang, and the jewelry, watches, and money she had been hiding went flying in all directions. The crowd got to her feet and cheered like Pierre had never did before. It was the greatest circus trick everyone had ever seen. The smile returned to the ringmaster's face. One by one, the performers staggered out onto the stage. They were disoriented and had no idea what was going on. The people in the audience were busy scrambling for their belongings. Countess Lucille picked herself up from the heap on the floor. Her hat was in bits and her clothes were torn, tattered, and covered in black soot from the cannon. "How could I ever thank you for what you've done tonight?" Pierre said gratefully. "You saved the reputation of my circus and performers. This is the only family I have," he continued, tears welling in his eyes. The Zolaris gave him a huge hug. "It's a pleasure," said Ace. "We're here to help." "Your performers will be fine by tomorrow," Amali added confidently. "Their coordination may be a little out of whack now, so I won't be doing any tightrope walking practice tonight." She laughed. "We were planning on moving on to the next town and tomorrow, but I'll talk to my people in the morning and see if they're willing to stay another day so you can see our show," said Pierre. "We would love that," Isha responded. "Free tickets, of course, for all of you," added Pierre. "Yippee!" cried Lottie. Pierre's smile stretched all the way across his face. "I'm feeling quite hungry," said Oscar. "Does anyone feel like a hot dog?" As the Zolaris and Professor Bard headed for the hot dog stand, they were amused to see Countess Lucille in her hands and knees digging up dirt looking for the make-believe treasure box and tiara. "I'm sure the Zolaros said it was near the hot dog stand," Countess Lucille muttered angrily to herself. "Put the pieces. Chloe, not the crazy. You're pasting gum. Not good. You stole my copyrighted tweet too." Q's mouth is close.